We're off and running. I can see the thing. There we are. Hi, everybody. I made it. You guys made it too, whenever you arrive. There's one person.
Huh?
I said one person joined.
Oh, I'm there, but I lost my chat. I popped out, it disappeared somewhere.
I love computers and their messes that they make. Got a couple people. There's another one. Say hi, guys. Let us know who you are. If you feel comfortable with that. Hey, there's 7. The last of her kind says hello. Hello, last of her kind. Pillars of Light, greetings from Texas. Hi, Pillars. Andy says hello. Hi, Andy. Eddie says everyone is shy to chat first. Yeah, that's like going in dance floor kind of thing, right?
Yep.
Nobody wants to be the first one out the gate. So everyone else is listening, watching, seeing how it goes. But hey, you know, we try to be a safe space for everybody. We are actually having a nice sunny day here. It's actually cold, but sunny. So it's kind of encouraging, which is nice. I rather enjoy the sun. Seeing it come out every so often is a pleasure, to say the least. How are you all doing? We're going to have a slow rollout. Get us talking on a subject. Savannah says, greetings. Hi, Savannah. It's a mushroom heart. And he says, not doing bad. Good. Glad to hear it. We have allergies, so you may be hearing us sneezing and things.
I do anyway.
And Ian says, don't be shy. Please ask anything as long as it is related to magic and other things. Pillars of Light say, blessed. Yes, we hope so. Eddie says, on my spring break for college, a needed break, but not long enough. College is a lot of work. Jessica says, hi, Ian.
Hello. I'm just not saying too much because I got sniffles and driving me nuts at the moment.
Yeah. Like I warned them all. Yeah. I took an antihistamine, he took 2. So hopefully it'll keep us together long enough. And there's always something in the air that I tend to be allergic to, so that's always interesting. I never know for sure what it all is, but I guess they say as you get older, you get more allergies because then your body gets sick and tired of dealing with it. And it sort of rebels. It just says, out of here. We don't want no of your stuff. But, so what are you taking at college, Eddie? If you want to talk about it. Dennis, go him. Hello, Siofra. Hi, Dennis or Denise. I'm thinking Dennis. How are you guys? Jessica says, ooh, my new air purifier bought for COVID has made a huge difference in my allergies. Expensive, but so worth it.
Yeah.
They're good to have. I ended up getting an ultraviolet light thing that kills germs for my office, and I've been using it. It was not that expensive, so that was kind of nice. Pillars of Light says, I recently discovered your channel, and I especially love your video on scrying. Well, thank you. It's always interesting to find out, how people respond to some of the stuff that I say, because I'm never sure exactly whether I'm actually salient or not and getting points across. But if it works, that's a good thing. Andy says, what do you guys think about John Dee and Enochian magic?
Well, that's kind of a...
Ah!
Could lead to long, drawn-out conversations there.
Well, we made the Enochian tablets, so we were sort of serious.
Yeah, and the Sigillum DMS. I just haven't got my stuff together to get back to it. Kind of lost enthusiasm. It took so long to make the tablets and things.
That was quite the chore, which is why we did a video on how we made them, because not everybody actually makes them. So that's kind of an interesting process. And, we're curious about it. My take on angelic stuff is that angels are universal and got co-opted by Christianity, so I try to look at it from that point of view, because there's a lot of angel talk in Enochian, because they're supposed to be the angels.
Well, yeah, and that's what John Dee was doing, was what you'd call angelic magic.
Right, so, and we have a friend who actually did some Enochian scrying and stuff like that, and we value his opinion on things. And he got some interesting stuff, but he wasn't sure if it was genuine or not. It's one of those sort of side projects.
I'm pretty convinced it was, but yeah.
So yeah, but it's a major thing to undertake. And although we've got the altar and we've got the tablets, we still haven't gotten it together to actually do the thing. So yeah, we should get it together.
Part of the problem is learning how to
pronounce things correctly.
What the proper pronunciation should be from all of this information.
Yeah. And of course, John Dee is not the one who got the Enochian. That was Kelly, who scried the stuff.
Yeah, Kelly was the scryer, but John Dee did the invocations and evocations and things. Sort
of an interesting collaboration. They made a big deal out of that in The Discovery of Witches, the fiction series. That was kind of entertaining to see that John Dee and Kelly both were prominent parts of that storyline. Thought was interesting. So, let's see. Pillars of Light said absolutely. And then Jessica says that kind of tech always sounds so cool and sci-fi to me. Oh yeah, the lights and stuff. It wasn't very expensive though, and they were using it everywhere, so I figured it was worth an investment. Gary says, hi Siofra and Ian, enjoying the first warm day here, opening windows and making homemade cleaning products. Positive energy. Loretta and Gary. Thank you, Loretta and Gary. Jonathan says, hi everyone. Last week Moonradish asked about familiars. I didn't get a chance to say familiar is a job description, not a type of spirit. Okay. And he says, I'm an illustration major with a minor in theater. My senior project for illustration is a collection of concept pieces for an inclusive Braille-friendly tarot deck. That sounds fantastic. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would really appreciate a Braille deck. Because, then they could read the deck. It would be awesome. Athusa says, hi Siofra and Ian. Hi Athusa. Luna says, hi Siofra and Ian. How are you both? We're doing pretty well, except for the allergies. Yeah. Aliyah says, hello everyone. Hello Aliyah. Joey says, do mirrors that face each other create portals? I heard some amateur ghost hunters say something to that effect. Well, it depends on what's going on with the mirror. I mean, just ordinary mirrors facing each other, if anything like that just naturally created a portal, then we'd be in trouble, because most bathrooms have mirrors that face each other one way or another. But if you're doing it with intention, with the reflections going back and forth, I mean, historically speaking, mirrors are considered potential portals just because of the fact that they reflect the world, but a different version of the world in that sense. And when I, do a house cleansing and a sealing of the house, I always seal the mirrors up just in case, because it's always, you want to take precautions, because that's one of the ways that spirits are supposed to be able to come in and communicate. In a very, very, very early past life, long ago, I had a spirit mirror where I could talk to spirit beings. They would appear in the mirror, and we could have just direct communication that way. That was like, very different from how it is now. But, and then I had an experience with a housemate who was sending me all kinds of negative thought forms because she was mad at me. And I just sort of spontaneously hit upon the idea of turning my small mirror around, facing my big mirror, which was on the shared wall with her, and sending her thought forms back, which apparently worked quite well. She didn't sleep the rest of the night, but I slept fine, so that was nice. And yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's around mirrors, and I use mirrors in my house, in the windows facing outward to sort of reflect away energy from other people. So I don't know that, I mean, ghost hunters are often extremely worried about portals, and they think absolutely everything opens a portal up, but it usually takes a little bit more effort than just
and
that.
if you look at Asian stuff, they use mirrors a lot to fend off bad energy or bad spirits. Mirror use for that is pretty common in some areas.
So that's my random mirror stuff. So Eddie says, I was wondering about that last night, Joey. About mirrors. Good. Dennis go, since you are a professional, can you tell us if time traveling is real? Well, it's certainly real in your mind. I don't think it can happen physically. I mean, I time travel all the time into the past and into potential futures and so forth, but not met a time traveler, and so far any of the supposed cases of time travelers seems pretty obviously not genuine. But you know, you never know. Could be that things that are coming into our skies that we can't identify are actually coming through not just dimensions but time, or I don't know.
Yeah, you can view things in the Akasha if you get that far along and find out stuff from the past, but it doesn't make a connection, so to speak. I mean, you can look up things in the past, so it's sort of like time traveling.
And if there are any time travelers out there, I invite you to come to my house and let me know that you are real. That would be nice. So Kim says, hello everyone. Hi Kim. Luna says, just finished watching Requiem on Netflix. The series was based on Enochian magic, although wholly inaccurate. I don't think we've watched Requiem, have we?
No, we haven't. Supernatural had an astounding amount of Enochian stuff in it.
Oh yeah, all of their spells and things like that to hide from angels was in Enochian, so, and that was kind of entertaining. Chris the Rooster says, hello, good, you're on again. Sent your video to my friend the other day. Well, thank you. I always appreciate when people feel that, that it's worthy to be shared with others. And he says, Enochian seemed to mirror Solomon's incantations, but looks like an enormous amount of work. Yeah. Watch the video on the Enochian tablets that I made, the watchtowers, and you'll get an idea of how much work. So Jessica says, do you do any spring cleaning in your household on a magical level, or have any suggestions for us who might like to do so ourselves? And Shay says, hello. Hello. Happy Sunday, Shay. Well, it depends on what's going on in my house, because I have sort of, in general, things that are happening all the time. They're kind of self-replicating and that kind of thing. But traditionally, it's different times of the year, like either the day after Halloween for the Witches' New Year, or the calendar New Year, or some other New Year, or a spring day, or whatever. It's not uncommon for people to take a besom and just sort of sweep out any potential negative cobweb energy things that have accumulated through the months of being stuck indoors more often than not, and sweep them out the door. There's a lot of cultures that do that. When I was at the Bimbe in Oakland, they did that before they started the Bimbe, actually. They did both the bells and the broom, just like I would, and, swept out any negative energy before the ritual began, and then invited the spirits to attend by ringing the bells. So anytime you feel like the need to cleanse a space, noise sound maker kind of stuff is like banishing, so you can banish
Banging
negative
pots and
energy
pans.
by banging pots and pans or ringing bells or yelling and, opening up doors and windows and tell everything that doesn't belong to get out of your house. So yeah, I would do that. um, but I don't feel like I need to do it all the time, just every so often. So Aaron says, hello, sorry I'm late. Nope, you're not very late. We're just getting started. You're good on time.
Shay said hello.
I did. I already said hello to Shay.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, before I started in on the thing about cleansing. Savannah says, at Eddie, that's really cool. I haven't seen any Braille-friendly decks. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Pillars of Light said, I agree with you guys about the ghost hunters and mirrors, etc. Simla Isley says, could you please tell us how you can channel messages through a mirror? If you ever talked to a deity through a mirror before? Well, yes, I have. And there's different experiments that you can do. You can do like telepathy by using magic mirrors. It's not difficult to make a magic mirror. You can just, get a picture frame and paint the back of the glass black and put it back together. And then you can either add a fluid condenser like chamomile tea or the more exotic many herbal formula condenser.
John D used a black mirror since he came up.
And then you can use that for scrying. And of course, with scrying, talking to spirits is one of the things you can do with scrying, as well as try and look into your past or your present or the future, seeing things that aren't necessarily visible to the ordinary person. And you can also charge up magic mirrors to sort of send out specific vibrations. We have a couple of mirrors in our house that just send out healing energy into the room where we have them. So you can charge them up for a lot of different purposes. They're not just a one-trick pony kind of thing. Yeah. And generally speaking, talking to deities I've done in person rather than through an object. So I guess I haven't done that one particularly, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't. Jonathan says time travel forwards is easy, take a nap. Yeah, true enough. Violet says hello, hi Violet. Luna says hi Violet. Haley says, so I so enjoy your chats. Thank you for hosting. Well, you're welcome, and thank you for being here. We appreciate all of our people. Andy says, feels like we've all time traveled and 2020 never ended. Or it was the year that never was. I kind of, when that whole thing started, I'm going like, okay, this is a year that's not happening, and then there's another. So we've got 2 years that just didn't happen at all. We kind of put pause on everything. Hopefully we're now going forward. My area is about to catch up with my vision of how many people we were going to lose to COVID. We're getting up into the 140s. I think we're at 145. And for the longest time, in the last 2 years, anytime I thought about how many people we were going to lose, 150 was the number that kept popping up. I find that interesting. Not happy, but interesting. Merchera Blossom says, definitely. Violet says, hi, Luna. Eddie says, thanks, Savannah. That's one of the many reasons why I'm making the deck. Another is because I believe that accessibility should be normalized. Absolutely. I heard some idiot didn't want to have Braille in the elevators. He was the once idiot in charge. And I thought, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Because he didn't like how they looked. I'm like, seriously.
Well, since we're at a little break on questions here, Luna had a question that I didn't quite remember to answer when I was doing that stuff about wands versus staffs. And what I would have liked to have had was that a wand can be treated exactly like a staff, but staffs are often used for another purpose, like a symbol of authority, or sometimes they put spirit beings in staffs, depending if you're using like a palo staff or something. So you could have an elemental being or something living in there, or things like that, which normally don't go along so much with a wand. You might, have your staff when walking, so you might have some protection built into it for that. So the uses are a little bit different. They can be treated the same way, but they're often not used the same way, though they can be.
She says, thank you.
Well, and that was it.
Yeah.
What's the word to say on that?
Okay. Of course, I have spirits in my wands, but that's because I work with the tree spirit of the wood that I'm with.
Yeah.
And that's not the same thing as putting a spirit in a wand. That's like the spirit already existed.
Well, yeah, you don't usually think of wands so much in association with putting spirits in them. That's usually like in the staffs and things, or in the Palo and Voodoo and stuff like that associated with it.
So Jonathan says, I've got bad vibes about Dee and Kelly, their obsession with finding treasure, the wife swap that made the angels stop talking to them. Have you guys gotten any benefit from Enochian magic? Well, since we haven't done it yet, the answer would be no.
Yeah, that wife swap was Edward Kelly's deal. And Dee didn't really want to do it in the first place, and then it's no surprise that things went bad between them when he did it.
Talk about breaking trust.
Yeah, I think that was more a problem between Dee and Kelly that stopped it from working after that, because Dee never settled comfortably with that, from what I've read. So yeah, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily my approach either, but there is one thing about the Enochian stuff that's very intriguing to me, and that is if you are familiar with the ethers, and what Crowley did with them. And if you scry the ethers out, each one can be an initiatory experience. So you can literally make progress on the path towards enlightenment by scrying the various ethers as if you were there or traveling there to them. So that's a little bit different than the standard Dee and Kelly stuff, and personally that's what interests me the most, is that type of thing. Well, you can learn all kinds of things from the tablets. But yeah, it's an interesting subject, I think.
We did get some immediate response when we first started looking into it. Like the angel that was willing to work with us gave me his sound and his name, how to pronounce his name, kind of thing. So that seemed like a positive response from those particular forces.
And it is one of the interesting things that Enochian is an actual language. It's academically, it's considered an actual language, not just like a transliteration or anything like that. Considered to be a language of its own. It meets all the criteria, which is interesting, since they scried it out.
Yeah, and that's before they had all these great apps to figure out how to make new languages and stuff. I mean, Elvish is considered a language, but he was a language expert when he wrote the Lord of the Rings and everything else. So that would make sense. And since then, they've created things like Klingon and whatever. They want it to sound like a language. It's sort of fascinating with that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, the Dee and Kelly thing. We have what our friend did some scrying and ran across a being, I think, of the Earth tablet that told them how to make something that supposedly will actually find treasure. Since you mentioned treasure, it's a way of making a scrying tool out of a cross with a ruby in the center. And I actually wanted to really try it and see if it gets anything. Supposedly it works on map scrying type of thing. But we got all the parts, but we never built it.
Okay, so Andy says, have you guys ever looked into the phenomenon of high strangeness? Charles Fort, John Keel, etc. Well, I was a fan of Fort. I thought the stuff that he collected was fascinating. And, I've read some of his collections of strange things that have taken place. So, I don't know. It doesn't really go any farther than that, though. I haven't run across one myself, like, frogs falling out of the sky or fish or other things that don't make sense. So Violet says, I'm a fan of Enochian. It was very cool just listening now about the ethers as initiation. In my altered youth of sleep-deprived and food-deprived life, I colored these invisible planes, B1, B2, B3. Luna says, finally started my Mind Valley Jose Silva course recently. It's all about bending reality and shaping your future. Was surprised to find it's Barden for non-magic folks. Spent 45 minutes putting my consciousness into different types of metal whilst projecting myself into my sitting room, keeping the metal rotating in the air and charging the color of my walls. Mind Valley is grueling. Sounds like a pretty good practice.
Yeah, does sound right along the line with Barden stuff for sure.
So Ruth says, hi all. Hi Ruth. Thank you for joining us. Jonathan says, Enochian is amazing. It's the real deal. Grammar, punctuation, tenses are real language. I have no doubt that they were really communicating with angels, or at least with some set of beings that call themselves angels. What's in a name, right?
Well, yeah, really, because I mean, what, you know, it's almost got so much to be a human interpretation of what angel means. It's almost a non-definition. I mean, obviously the Christians have their particular point of view on it.
So Eddie says, I'm going to be moving soon. How do I deconsecrate my sacred space and recall my energy before I leave? Well, this is a good question, because this is something that if you have been maintaining like a sacred space in the place where you live, it's an important thing to do. So let me think. Well, when you're moving your sacred objects, talk to them, tell them what you're doing, and that you're taking them to a new location, and that where they are right now is not where they are meant to stay. Wrap them in silk if you can, because that'll preserve their energy and so forth. So when you reconsecrate your new space, they're ready to go, and you don't have to kind of start from scratch. Undoing any wards that you've put up. Going widdershins for most people would be a way of banishing. And if you have anything buried, either mentally discharge it into the earth or dig it up and take it with you.
Yeah, our friend from the valley had put some obsidian stones down and he buried them in his yard to mark the corners. And when he went to move and dig them up, he couldn't find them again.
That's why I tend not to bury them. I have them above the ground so I can find them in the garden, you know, looking neat and cool and so forth and whatnot. But you can mentally connect with them and then, you know, just discharge their purpose and just let them be stones in the ground again and let the earth just receive them and that kind of thing. And undo this, you know, undo any permanent circles you might have. Obviously take down wards and that kind of thing so the people that move in aren't, I don't know, it seems oppressive to a lot of people if they're not magical. And to start with, it freaks them out. Their subconscious starts to panic when they sense things that they don't understand. So definitely doing that is a responsible thing to do.
Yeah, and you don't want to remain having a connection with a place after you've left it, because who knows who's going to be in there next.
Yeah, so you could like take something all around the house, like in the old days they would like, you know, take a piece of fire or something to start their new hearth in order to keep the connection with the old place, but this is the opposite of what you want to do. But you know, you can take some kind of a stone and sort of program it to absorb any excess, any leftover energy of yours that you have to put in the stone to keep with you so you keep your memories, and then take that with you to your new location. And so as you take it away, you're removing yourself physically, you know, doing a symbolic gesture of physically removing your memories and so forth and taking them to the new place. I think that would probably be helpful. That's what comes to mind at the moment. So Blake says, hi, Siofra and Ian. Would you be able to touch on your experiences with improving the ability to see the aura? I feel I am just beginning. I quite often see a white haze following people in movement. Okay, so you want to be in a quiet, undisturbed location with dim lighting, like and a blank wall. I can't use white for a blank wall because I see things on white that just sort of pop out, and it's very distracting. Then I can't see what's going on in my hands. But by allowing, doing the dim light and then looking at your own hand, for example, against a surface, and first look in between your fingers. So you want to like gaze in between where your energy is going to be the strongest, and start to soften your gaze. So you don't want to like look at your fingerprints or the hands lines or anything like that. You want to know that your fingers are there, but you're gazing kind of past and through it in a sense, and unfocusing your eyes, and then start to wait and see what develops. And the white thing is sort of an instant visual kind of stuff that you can often get, but I find that in between my fingers there's actually this very dark purple that I end up getting, and then I'll start to see the colors coming up around it, and letting yourself see color and not being shocked by it. I mean, it's really interesting when you can see extremely vivid colors and they're hanging in the air after you move your hand. Like the first really brilliant green hand that was left over when I moved my hand was like, whoa, what the hell? And so you have to get used to it and so forth. And because there's this part in us, in our brain, left over from when we were kids that tells us that you're not supposed to be able to see colors like in the air like that. That's not normal. And so those anxieties try to block us from being able to see it. So you have that sort of a barrier in your own mind that you have to work through. So you do it slowly and let yourself slowly come about. And now I see all kinds of different colors and stuff like that in my head when my eyes are closed. So I'm getting very used to the idea of seeing colors that aren't quote unquote there. So that would be my suggestion. So Luna says, sorry, that should have said changing the colors of my walls.
Not charging.
Okay. I see. That was the Mind Valley thing. Great question, Eddie. I'm hoping to move soon, too. Why Not says, hello, I am here first. I want to know what mirroring means in relationship and how to stop if it's hurting us. Thank you. Okay, I think you're talking about a psychological state of mirroring someone else's actions. You need to be a little more precise, I think. Are you talking about projecting onto someone else and then they're picking up on your projection and sending it back to you? So I need a little bit more before I can feel confident in answering it. Eddie says on this note as well, new home, blessings, cleansings. Would love suggestions for that too. Well, when I first move into a place, I do the full-on banishing any energy that's there and getting it out. And then the sealing of all of the potential portals like windows, doors, mirrors, water inlets and outlets, corners, outside corners, and that kind of thing. I did a video on that, ghost proofing your house. So I would certainly recommend that when you first move in, because that'll clear out any potential leftover stuff from the previous tenant. It'll also keep local ghosts from coming in and bothering you when you're trying to take a nap or go to bed. So you can decide when you want to interact with spirits instead of just having them just notice you. Hey, you're laying down and I can see you. What are you doing? Let me have a chat. So taking control of your space that way. And then, do the positive stuff after you do that. The bringing in your favorite smells, do something really homey in the house, like cook something that has a wonderful smell to it, and then eat that food and just sort of, celebrate the fact that you're living in a new location, and fill it with sounds that say you, like your favorite music or bells or, tonal stuff. And then when you set up the altar space, you consecrate that space separately. But that would be the first thing you would do for the house. So Luna says, when moving, would I need to undo all the pentagrams which I put up when I was ghost proofing?
No. My feeling.
Ian says no. Yeah, I don't think so.
It's just the pentagrams. If I'd worry more about leaving a physical object there that was charged up, or if you had charged up a temple area, to decharge that and leave it at a normal charge, because anything like that can affect somebody new who's not used to the energy in all kinds of different ways. We made a protective talisman for somebody once, and he couldn't wear it because it was powerful enough. He had to get used to it. It took him, taking small doses of it before he could wear it.
And when you're not in the house anymore, then their efficacy will slowly fade anyway. But
Yeah, that's true too.
Unless you're like doing it to protect other people, and then you sort of have a piece of you that's checking in on that all the time. But I think Ian and I just answered Jonathan's question of why you would remove positive words, because it's not something everybody can handle, and it's not meant for everyone to have to deal with. If you try and throw somebody in a river and they don't know how to swim, they might survive, but then again, they might not. And so, this path is one of choice. Choice is the main point of the whole process, is that you choose to face yourself, face your fears and anxieties, take control over your path, and make conscious decisions about where you want to go.
And don't underestimate this stuff, even though you might be used to it. People who aren't, it can really affect them. I have a friend who was affected very much by a very small ritual we did, and I gave it to Siofra to look at to make sure it was okay, and we just put him through just a little initiatory ritual that consisted of little more than stepping over a line to
face truth
into the truth, into the light. And it freaked him out big time for years afterwards. Apparently it hit him really hard, and I didn't realize how hard until recently. So you have to be careful. Things can be relatively benign to you if you're used to them. They can blow somebody totally out of the water if they're not.
And can potentially cause them to go insane, lose their grip on reality as they're trying to understand, put into context the things that they're experiencing. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, hauntings can go from being a very typical, not bad haunting to a full-blown poltergeist and things flying through the air, because the people and their specific reaction to it can actually move the energy in a different direction. So how people feel about things is rather important. Okay, so Laud says, hi Siofra and Ian, really enjoy learning from all your great videos. I've been receiving a lot of signs and messages lately, and what you're doing is so interesting and helpful. Well, I'm glad. That's always a good thing. Yeah, I always like the synchronicities that I hear about. Or someone was just thinking about that question and then pop up a video. It's like, oh. Violet says, is anyone here a fan of Stargate? If so, was the phone number of 6 constellations how they got an address in the universe? I want to fashion my own Stargate using correspondences. Yes, we were a fan of Stargate. We've watched the entire thing more than once at this point. And there's the origin and then the other
Right.
constellation things, and I think it is 6 constellations. It was 6 numbers, but one of them was the origin, so Earth had to be one.
Right.
If you were coming from Earth. At least I think that. So Eddie says, great suggestions, thank you. I have the perfect stone for it as well. I've got a 3-pound hag stone I found that I have yet to find an active use for. That sounds perfect. That's a big stone. I have a 5-pound piece of amethyst and I can hardly hold on to it. It's so big, 5.5 pounds. The biggest amethyst I've ever seen. So John says, Luna, if you ghost proof, it would be a massive job. Not really. Just undo all of the things, and if you wanted to, but you don't need to.
Generally, I don't think you'd need to, like, just pentagrams for sealing up the windows and things, and, I don't think those would need to be messed with. Just leave them in place for something like that.
So, Blake says, thank you, I'm assuming that's what that means. Jonathan says, Violet Stargate with Richard Dean Anderson was amazing. Sounds like you have a great idea. I think you could use sigils as the phone numbers. Jessica says, why not mirroring is psychological. It's just mimicking a person in small ways like posture, speech, pattern, etc., usually unconsciously. It's not harmful and tends to happen more than you like someone. When you like someone. Okay. So in that case, it doesn't sound like it's a negative thing. It's just what happens when people get to know each other really well, and how our telepathy works so well, because our thought processes mirror each other. Often at this point, we'll see some kind of a visual stimulus or hear a sound, and we'll both have the same thought process about that and both say it at the same time.
Yeah, happens a lot. We've been together a few years now.
Yeah, a few. 91. So what's that, 31 years this year? Yeah. So that means we're coming up on our 30th wedding anniversary.
Yep.
Because we got married in 92. That'd be in May.
Yay.
Yay.
Still
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. JC says, another question around leaving a beloved home. I have buried 9 of my cats who died in my backyard. I found boxes for all, and they are all in boxes. Should I dig them up and take them with me? Well, I don't know. I mean, you could potentially, but that'd be a lot of work. And I don't know how the cats would feel about it. I've only ever once wanted to actually dig up one of my cats to put on my altar, and that was Charlie. He's still in the backyard behind the temple. And I thought of that because I've never felt comfortable with the idea of just putting random bones, of animals on my altar, unless they're like deer horns that just naturally fall off, that kind of thing. Or something I might have found, like, a seal vertebrae or whatever. But like cats are so personal, and so I have thought about the idea of, because Charlie was more a familiar as well as a pet. He was a very special cat, and that, I wouldn't mind giving him a place of honor to sit on an altar somewhere in the house with my bass statue, potentially. I don't know. But it's going to be up to you. So you could take him with you if you wanted to, but that's a lot of work.
Yeah, if it was me, I'd probably leave him there.
Because cats don't like when things change. I'd be changing a lot of stuff. When they're alive, they don't care they don't like it when things change. I'm thinking, yeah, probably not so much. I don't know. It'd be up to you. Eddie says, on occasion, when I connect with deities, they give me feelings, thoughts, memories from themselves for me to understand instead of words. Is this a form of embodiment or clairvoyance? Well, yeah, this would be this is how empaths use telepathy. This would be an empathic ability as well as a clairvoyant ability combination. Because if you're just seeing it, but you're not feeling it, then that would be just clairvoyance. But if you're feeling it as well as seeing it, then that would be empathic clairvoyance. And that's how I communicate with spirits a lot. Ghosts and so forth.
Yeah, and when we say we talk to them, usually it's not so much verbal, and you get the message. I mean, you can't say it really comes in verbally, but it comes in as like a kind of a picture image thing feeling where you know what they're saying.
Right. Although some people do hear them aloud, like my granddaughter did when she was younger. We were on one ghost investigation where I had to come back to the location. I did a walkthrough first, and then I went back later, and there was a spirit that was attached to something in this closet. It was a playhouse stage area kind of thing. They did a lot of local productions there. It's been around for a while. And apparently the first time I went, I just figured out he was there. I didn't tell him I was coming back, so when I came back, he was really mad at me, and we had to have this discussion about his rage and deal with it, process that through. And so I always talk aloud whenever I do this. I mean, I don't have it, it doesn't happen, it happens just in my head, but I say it out loud. It's just always been the way I've done it, whether it's with animals or trees or with spirits. And so I did it, like usual, and responded to the feelings I got. And then when we left the space, I was driving my granddaughter home, and she got in the car and she asked if it was normal for people to hear what the ghosts were saying. And I said, well, did what you hear him say make sense with what I said back? She says, yeah. I said, well, I guess it's normal for you. So everyone's a little bit different when it comes to these abilities. And I don't know that she has that right now. She's going through a sort of a intense time in her life where she's going to have to get back to that stuff later. But it's always interesting. Why Not says, sometimes I think of thoughts that's not mine, and when I listen to it, it's his thought process. It is stressful. So it sounds like you're having intrusive telepathy. And someone else's thought processes, which isn't good. So in that case, what you need to do is to create psychic boundaries and only allow your own thoughts to be in your head, which takes time to learn how to do. But when you do notice it, just, mentally just take those intrusive thoughts and push them away and say, not mine, these are yours, I don't accept them, stay out. And that'll help. That'll start to help. Okay, so Luna says, thanks for the advice, Siofra and Ian. I'm so relieved about not having to remove the pentagrams. Jonathan says to Shay, I would leave them where they are, but that's just me. In the Far East, some believe spirits are attached to bones, but that's not part of my personal belief system. Savannah says, a friend recently moved and asked for some cleansing advice. I tend to follow a pattern of neutralization of the space, boundary sealing and protection, and bringing in of desired energies. Sounds pretty basic. I would agree with that. Eddie says, Siofra, I've noticed you've mentioned that some spirits send frightful forms to try to scare test you, but what are they testing you for by doing this? Prejudice? Well, I mean, the tree spirit that did that was just playing a prank, basically, and liked scaring people. It was like not anything to do with me as far as it went. And unfortunately for the poor tree spirit, my response was not what was anticipated when I started laughing. But the other ones, I think it is a matter of, like, spirits, they don't have a body, so they can look like a lot of different things. And if they're going to be able to trust me to listen and, to who they really are and not judge them just based on my idea of beauty, that would make sense to me, that would be part of that. And I've met some pretty large and potentially frightful beings and throughout my life, and not having that kind of knee-jerk response like, oh my God, you're so ugly, I can't stand you, is always a good thing. So I think it's just to get me used to their forms, because again, that childhood, thought processes and so forth from adults around you tell you that these things are not good, they're bad. If they look frightful, they must be evil, which isn't necessarily the case, because that's all in our mind as far as, what we've decided is evil looking or frightful looking. And so it's part of my, I guess, shadow work, in the sense that I'm trying to unprogram my subconscious to have an instant response based on no information. Like the one guy that came up to me and asked me if I was afraid of him because of how he looked, and I responded, are you going to hurt me? And he said, no. And I said, well, then why would I be afraid of you just because of how you look? And so that's what that is, I think. Okay. So Violet says, thanks, Jonathan and Siofra, that helps me. And then my finger went and jumped. I always love that. Now I have a planetary as destination and sigils and correspondences as part of the telephone number. So Lod says, there has been a lot of synchronicity lately. A few days ago I found a small hagstone. Then very soon after that, watched one of your previous live chats and you were talking about finding hagstones. Yeah, well, isn't it great? And we get the weird kind of synchronicities when we watch TV. We'll come up with a word that we haven't heard spoken aloud in 20 years or more or ever. And then every TV show we watch afterwards will have that word in it. and we're just sitting there going like, seriously? What, are they listening in on our conversations? The heck? Of course, they've already made the program, so maybe somehow we listened in on their word. I don't know, but it is kind of entertaining. So Andy says, what are the odds that a large portion of the people on this planet are possessed? Maybe it's just me, but it seems like evil is at a modern day all-time high worldwide. Well, I don't think it's possession. I think it's a lack of knowing how to become a human being. I don't think that there's intent behind the evil in that sense, like there's a bunch of spirits that are running around looking to possess people and make them act bad. But
I think a lot of it's built into our society. I mean, all the movies, if you watch a movie, it's all going to be a violent crime or something mostly. Superhero movies, which I like still. So they bring out and show the negative aspects to things, and people get kind of used to it. And
I think people are asleep and they're just running around doing stuff without even thinking about it. And yeah, there are some definite evil people in the world, and I think that my definition of evil is someone intentionally harming someone else and knowing they're harming them and liking the idea of harming them is my definition of evil. Random acts of stupidity are not my definition of evil. They're just stupid people. But anyway, it certainly does seem to be
too prevalent.
Yes. So Luna says, I still haven't buried my cat. I've kept his ashes until I'm finally in my own place. Then I'll bury him. And Eddie says, yes, Ian, exactly. So Violet says, indeed, Andy, it's true. I just said that today, too. And he says, it's almost like Invasion of the Body Snatchers for idiots. Yeah, I don't know. So Eddie says, and yeah, that hagstone is my first. It has been through a lot, too. I had it in my front garden to protect the home until my dad used it as a stump to prop his truck tire. So disrespectful. This reminds me of some of those lists that I see on Facebook of things not to do in a witch's house. Like pick up all of her rocks and say, do you just like rocks? Where did these all come from? Or, cut a pie with her knife. Or
pick mud out of your boots. Like that
yes.
Actually happened to somebody. Walked in his house to find somebody there picking mud out of his boots with his othame.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you shouldn't do in a witch's house. And using their sacred stones to prop up your truck is definitely up there. That's number one. On! So anyway, Why Not said, thank you. You're welcome. Violet says, for example, if I wanted to dial... well, okay, I'm sorry. You've lost me. You can figure that out on your own. I'm not repeating all that. Gary says, how does one prepare for a hand fasting? Okay, so preparing for a hand fasting, one assumes that if you're ready for that you have worked out the details of your relationship. Like a hand fasting can be a year and a day kind of an experiment for some people, or a legal marriage like Ian and I, we got married using hand fasting ceremony. So, knowing each other well enough to know that you're on the same page, and this is like a promise before your personal gods and goddesses and so forth, and not any less sacred in that sense than, a Catholic ceremony or something like that. In fact, they have a series of unhand fasting ceremonies in case things don't work out later and you decide to break the bonds. which I thought was interesting and seems appropriate somehow, because during the hand fasting, you're magically joining yourselves and your future and your, your commitment to each other and your own personal path, and then giving each other room to grow within that path is paramount for having a healthy relationship. So I don't know there's anything special in any other sense that you need to do to prepare for hand fasting. I mean, like before the event, I would take a ritual bath, yeah, make a cool outfit, and be in a place that we both love, that kind of thing. But, that's just a personal preparation, not like, if you need more, ask more. Let me put it that way. So Violet says, I feel the same way, Andy. I have met my fair share recently of negative, evil people. Kim says, I believe felt some synchronicity between my feelings a few weeks back when taking a walk near my home and feeling very sad seeing piles of trees piled up and a bulldozer near it. Yeah. Thinking all the birds and animals losing their homes and finding this a bit similar to people in Ukraine now. Yeah, although they're doing it on a much wider scale, not just the animals. I mean, everything. Animals, people, buildings, history, culture, art. I mean, the rubble that you can see is like some of these things can never be replaced because they were ancient. And that's the saddest thing one of the sad things about war is the utter destruction of history and the beauty of a place. And then they have to redo that. But I can see the similarities. So Savannah says, I've been trying out reality shifting and generally trying to make better use of my dreams. It's been fun exploring my internal world building, etc., though I'm trying to have more specific experiences. Sounds like an interesting process. Jonathan says, Andy, interesting topic. I personally believe the world is exactly as evil today as it has always been. Historians note that during times of economic strife, superstition and end times talk ramps up. Well, this is true.
Yeah, probably a good point.
But actually, we have it more recently. If you look up on Wikipedia's Doomsday page, you'll see how often that is happening now. So I think it's become like the knee-jerk reaction to anything that's going on in the world. So Savannah says, does anyone have any RS lucid dreaming tips, experiences that they feel like sharing? I guess we'll wait and see. Lake Stevens says, I bought a car that turned out to be a total wreck that would not pass inspection. The former sheriff's department that ripped me off for $3,200 plus repairs told me I was SOL. I can't afford to just throw $4,000 down the toilet. Is there anything I can do to balance the scales? I had to donate the car to the American Diabetes Association. My mother died of complications from diabetes in November. I now have to be put on insulin and was just last week told I have a cataract. My eye doctor told me a new prescription wouldn't help, and because of my lazy eye, I noticed the changes much more and need to expect surgery sooner than most people. The cataract is in my good eye. Well, everyone gets cataracts eventually. That's sort of a process of being alive and aging, but I'm sorry that that's happening to you. And I'm not sure about how you can, balance the scales there as far as, it's like, I look forward at stuff. It's like if I do something nice for somebody, I don't necessarily expect them to do something nice for me, but I expect later on down the road someone else will just do something nice for me without, my input. Lots of things are unfair in the world. And magic isn't about making things fair. It's about seizing opportunities when they come along and helping to nudge the path a little bit and changing your energy so that you are more aware of what's coming and can make more informed decisions and choices about that. But it doesn't change the overall nature of reality, which is unfair, because the world doesn't sit there and kind of keep track and notice every little thing that's happening. It's sort of a much broader view than that. And really, I'm with Babylon 5 on that. it's good that the universe is unfair, because if it was fair, then every terrible thing that ever happened to a good person meant that somehow they deserved it. And I think that kind of victim thinking is probably not healthy for us as a whole. But try and find out what sort of help you can get. Talk to the whatever the powers that be that are near you, whether it's a health situation, or a government agency that might be able to assist, or you have to let people know that it's happening, that are in a position of power to put you in the right place. Like when we needed a new roof, we did not have money for a new roof. And I called the food stamp place and I asked them if there was anyone who helped seniors get a new roof. She sent me to somebody else, and they gave me the phone number for the local place that does it, and we ended up with a new roof with a federal grant for that. So there are probably things that are out there that are available, but the trick is finding and being open to having them come. Jonathan says, I'm sorry, Lake Stevens. I would try lots of different magic. The spirits of Saturn come to mind for you. Good luck. So Mixed Diva says, hi, everyone. Hi, Mixed Diva. And Andy says at Lake Stevens, know in your heart of hearts that you will be okay no matter what. Have faith. Focus on your intention. Synchronicity may lead you to the answer. This is true. Oh, that's the end of those. Okay. I'll stop trying to scroll back or scroll forward. Yeah, I mean, it's a frustrating thing, and we were at a point where at one point we were going to lose our house, and somehow I managed to find help for that too. I was just like amazed. Ian was going to school, an email came and said, are you having trouble with housing? And then it had a number, and it was only a 2-week period or 10 days or something to fill out all the paperwork for this. Ended up getting a state grant to help pay our mortgage for a period of time. It was pretty incredible. So Jonathan says, Savannah, Luna recently put an hourly chime on her phone. When it rings, she asks herself if she's dreaming. Idea is you end up asking yourself that while you are dreaming, then you can lucid dream. Yeah, that's definitely one of the possibilities. Or, walking through a doorway while you're awake and wondering, am I asleep? Am I dreaming? Pick some common activity. It's definitely one of those. One that I had was pretty funny because when I became lucid, I realized that I was having someone else's dream imagery. My partner at the time, David. He dreamt a lot about poop. And all of a sudden, there was poop all over the floor in my dream. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I have David's dream symbolism on my floor. And then all of a sudden the whole floor was covered with it. I'm like, this is going to take forever if I have to clean this all up. So I imagined a clean floor on top of the covered with poop floor and made it go away so I could continue with the dream, which I thought was quite brilliant. I
had one once that was interesting because it was so boring. Basically, I had a lucid dream. I got out of my body. I went and walked around outside, and it was the middle of the night, like it really was. And I couldn't do anything in the dream that I couldn't do in reality, so all I could do was wander around in the middle of the night. I ended up getting so bored I hopped back in my body on purpose to get rid of it. Nothing to do at 3 in the morning, way out there in the woods.
Yeah, nobody's up, no one to talk to.
Yeah.
Not even the bears. They're all sleeping. So Mixed Diva says, laugh out loud, oh gracious. Andy says, what's the most powerful entity, good or bad, that you two have encountered? Well, I'd say probably the most powerful entity I've encountered was the two-headed dragon. Ian wasn't there with me when that happened. But I've met some pretty potent gods. There was a funny thing on my Facebook this week where somebody had a dream about an owl that was covered in eyes, and there was a peacock nearby, and I'm like, it screamed Argus to me. Because, Argus is the beast with the 100 eyes, and I met him, and he was extremely powerful. When I met him, it was quite a surprise because I wasn't trying to do anything. I mean, most of the time that's what happens. I'm not doing something in particular, just it happens. I was at a workshop that Starhawk was leading. And it was the very first night. And I was up on the bunk bed, and all of a sudden, this intense presence with a lot of eyes was just there, right on top of me, and looking into me. And it's difficult to express how that felt. It was like there were no nooks or crannies in my brain or in my spirit or in my history or anywhere that were hidden from this being who was taking the closest look I've ever had anyone take a look at. So that was pretty interesting. And the two-headed dragon was definitely dangerous, potentially, but has become an ally. And for those who don't know that story, there's a head at either end. It's not two heads at one end. It's like, here's a head, and they have a sinewy connection. It's a totally spirit, so it doesn't have to make sense anatomically. It's not physical. And it's probably the largest, I think, that I've encountered, because it was like, 10, 20 feet high or something, and about probably 30 feet long or so. And very powerful presence to that. I mean, to the point where when it started to come, when it first began, it was like the shadows in the woods became dangerous. And I knew that if I moved and tried to run, I would die, that the shadows would come alive and eat me. So that was interesting. And but I knew what to do. It was one of those clairsentient moments where I suddenly knew exactly what was coming and what I needed to do in order to survive it. And so I stood my ground and waited for the head to arrive, and then waited for the second head, because that's what you have to do if you meet this particular spirit. And once it sees its other half, then it suddenly becomes an ally, because it's looking for a warrior's heart that can withstand the pressure of fear that it can generate. So I would say that definitely qualifies. But both of them were intense in their own way. Definitely. How about you?
I don't know. I'm powerful. I haven't judged any of my encounters by that particular aspect. I guess probably one of the beings of the Goetta. And it was done out of necessity, because normally I wouldn't have contacted that being, but it all turned out well. And but I also invoke Kali, who would be considered the most powerful, but I've never got any negative aspect from that, so I don't know. Not very clear on that myself.
Okay, so Luna says, Savannah, my hourly lucid dream chime is going off now, and I cannot hear what Siofra is saying. Chill Baby says, I'm saving to move to a more non-conservative area, more open-minded to each having their own spirituality, more socially conscious, but I want to be surrounded by nature. Any suggestions, anyone? Well, we have lots of nature here, but a large number of idiot conservative people that are prejudiced up their wazoo. I'm not sure there's any place that isn't, so I'm no good. Make your own space.
Yeah.
So maybe someone else will have one. Mixed Diva says, I feel like I've shared some dreams with people, only a few, but I've never bothered to ask. Yeah, I have had some shared dreams. One with a husband, one with both of my children on separate occasions, which was very interesting. Violet says, is there a demon that causes a tree to fall? I just read it, but it didn't say which one. No idea. I'm sure that, when trees fall, the forest knows it. And I don't know if that's a demon that would make it fall. It's falling in order to give up its life for other things to grow and become a nurse log. Savannah said, thank you, Jonathan. I usually do reality checks by seeing if I can breathe through my nose and asking myself if I'm awake, because I trust that I would be honest with myself if I were. My dream reality butler is also supposed to be programmed to step in to assist me if I do wander to some sort of weird dream experience. That's interesting. Jonathan says, a cool thing Siofra taught, which worked for me, is to, during the day, imagine jumping, getting higher and higher, then staying up in the sky. I've flown around in dreams after using that process. That's pretty cool. Apparently my son is doing that a lot. Now he's started getting super speed indoors in his dreams, where he's going so fast he knows no one can see him. Which I think is just awesome. And Andy says at Chili Baby, or Chill Baby, get a house anywhere with a backyard and grow a garden. The connection you'll get to your plants, peace, and nature, as good as living in the woods. Adam says, hi, hey Siofra. Hi, Adam. Okay, so, yeah. Wow, been on for an hour and 10 minutes. Next Diva says at Chili Baby, yes, most of Oregon is incredibly conservative, iffy history, but most of Portland is nice. Minneapolis is more open as well. And Chili Baby says, surprisingly, I am terrible at growing things. Yeah, well. Adam says, I'm sorry, I now reached. Okay, he now reached. Enlightenment? That would be a good thing. Violet says, I just wonder, is there a practitioner powerful enough to cause that kind of destruction if one is enlisted a demon to do so? I think it's highly unlikely that a practitioner would have a demon powerful enough to make a tree fall down, if it's a healthy tree.
Yeah, I know that there's a branch related to voodoo. I don't know if it's Palo, what they call it, where they, part of the test, they make a nganga, however that's pronounced, which is a little cauldron. And if it's successful, they test to see if it's successful by having it kill a tree. So I've read.
Right. They fill their cauldron with all these poisonous animals, creatures, and
Plants.
things, and
Yeah.
plants and whatnot. Frogs and poisonous frogs. Violet says, God, I love hearing that. Okay, good. It was not. Mary says, made it. Hi, everyone. Hi, Mary. Adam says, question, what are your opinions on archangels? I think you've asked this before, and their archangels are basically Christian angels, and I don't work with them in particular. I don't have anything against them either.
Yeah.
Jonathan says, hi to Mary, hi to Adam. Savannah says, cool. I'm particularly interested in experiencing alternate worlds in a detailed way. I like using that in my narrative writing. Well, yeah, definitely. I've had some pretty interesting dreams on other planets from time to time. Some of my dreams could be movies. Laud says, had an unusual thing happen recently while outside in the evening. A very bright orange ember spark kind of fluttered past me. There were no fires lit nearby. What are your thoughts on this? Well, it could be a fire sprite, since Ian has met one, and we know that they exist. So,
yeah, that probably would qualify for that.
Yeah, seems like that would be your best option. Marisol says, hi. Hi, Marisol. Luna says, hi, Adam. TV Movie says, hello, maybe weird question, but is that possible, healing tooth cavities with energy magic? Also, growing hair, healing scars, etc., are those possible with magic? Much love. Certainly, there's some healing practices that can help with that. It depends on the individual and on how far advanced the tooth cavity kind of thing would be. So, I think healing scars and that kind of stuff with energy would probably be a possibility, especially if you get like a vitamin E cream kind of thing and charge it up before you use it. I mean, you can charge up your food for healing before you eat it. You can charge up things you're using on your body before you use them to sort of increase their effectiveness.
Yeah, and Barton gives a lot about healing in his first book, using the light energy to do that.
Marisol says, hi, Siofra. Have you had any new fairy experiences? Not of note. I haven't been smelling the fairies for the last while, so I've been waiting for for their smell to come back. Every so often I get a whiff, but then it doesn't stay. So I'm like, they're probably busy doing stuff. Savannah says, which planets, ma'am, did you get the names? Was there life? I've been to a lot of different planets and there is life, but not life as we know it. It's spiritual, spirit beings. If you're asking me, I've been to the sun. I've been to Venus. I've been to Mars. I've been to Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto. I've gone by Uranus. I've flown on comets that were heading towards the sun because they were fun to ride. There's a lot of things out there. Laud says, what does it mean to see a fire sprite?
Well,
it was stuck in his lamp.
Yeah, for some reason, I'll go ahead and and tell you what happened was I noticed things kept trying to fall and knock over my lamp. Books kept falling out of the bookshelf and things like that, and there were a lot of accidents and things trying to knock over my lamp, and I couldn't figure it out. In fact, I went and asked my wife if she had any idea what was going on, why things were trying to knock over my lamp. Well, it turned out next time I took the lid off and lit my lamp, a fire pixie escaped. I asked what it was. It said it was a fire pixie. It was probably 3 or 4 inches long, something like that, a small little fire sprite, and left a little fiery, very colorful little fiery trail as it zipped off. A little decorative trail type of thing.
Which was way cool.
It was way cool. And I don't know why it got stuck in there. I wouldn't think that one would get stuck in a lamp, but it apparently was. So
my thought is that it went in there while he was using the lamp and it was lit, and then he blew it out, and that was what got it stuck. It needed the fire to travel. But the minute that fire sprite escaped, I never had any more things trying to knock my lamp over. But it got to such a point that I asked my wife ahead of time before I found the sprite. It's like, what the heck is going on? So, we learn things as we go. Adam says, TV movie I saw on a forum of someone evoked A.A. Raphael and it cured their cavities completely. I can't remember what exactly they did. Well, the power of the human mind is potent. Mixed Diva says, when I meditate and get deep enough, I start seeing an indigo color that morphs and moves and evolves into other colors. I've been told it's my third eye before. Do you think it has any significance? Well, I mean... It sounds like what you get when you're trying to scry. Or when your third eye is opening. I mean, that happens to me when I'm getting ready to go to sleep. I'll start getting... Sometimes I'll get actually different colors or shapes. I've had this white shape. It's not like a blob, like a circle or anything. It's just like an odd shape, and it'll move around. So I know it's not like, I don't know, I rubbed my eyes and got, spots going. But I often get the moving kind of colors, and then they change, boiling up a little bit at times, and then they sometimes change into other things, and sometimes lead to visions. I had one that turned into this amazing thing with the stars and out in space and stuff like that. That was, just quite fabulous to watch. And I get some brilliant colors, and one of my more recent things that's happened with that is I was watching the colors form as I had my eyes closed, and then there was this green ball, very sphere, a sphere, and it came flying at my head, and when it flew at me, all of a sudden inside of it I could see the trees and the grass and stuff. It was like an outdoor scene. It was extremely vivid. It did that twice so that I knew it wasn't a mistake. It hasn't happened again, but I thought that was pretty fascinating. So yeah, that would definitely be third eye activity. Being able to see that kind of stuff is a good step. So Jonathan says, Siofra, churches are often nasty places for fake spiritualists. You've noticed angels hang out in churches. Have you wondered why angels choose to hang out in churches instead of in nature? Well, I saw them in both places. I saw them in churches and I saw them outside. So I think because people were hoping to, calling them in the churches. The people were really sad and unhappy, which I found confusing because, there were all these bright things hanging around and they couldn't see them. So I guess that was part of why they were sad. But I think it's just one of those things. And some people have got a guardian angel. I might have been seeing some people's guardian angels that were in the church as well. Some people have different types of guardian spirits and not angels at all. I mean, angels is just sort of like a generic term that I use for that kind of thing, of a bright being that has wings. And it isn't some other mythical creature that I can identify. Mixed Diva says, what do fairies smell like? Okay, the ones that are in my house, we have the one that comes around the most often smells like lavender. There's another one that smells like amber and one that smells like vanilla. And then my granddaughter has one in the back of the house that smells like chocolate. So they can smell like a lot of things, apparently. So that was really cool. So Kim says at Chill Baby, I'm lucky where I live near Rochester, New York. I live in a small town on a country road. I'm near people with shared metaphysical interests and nearby events. That's awesome. Savannah says, I wonder why spirits want a whole planet. Well, they're the spirits of the planet. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not that they want a planet. It's like the energy of that planet creates different spirit forms. And so...
Yeah, and they can only be, they're harmonious with that particular energy, and they generally can't live outside that type of energy, the planetary energy. So if, you're looking at a Mars spirit or a Venus spirit or whatever.
Yeah, and I've seen the heads of Saturn. Actual heads. They're like big, giant floating heads. I saw them in a courtroom above a judge's head, which seemed like pretty specific to them. And I met a Plutonian. I was thinking of calling him the other day, but I spaced it again, so he's probably not around at the moment. Jonathan says, excellent question, Mixed Diva. Cool, thank you. Savannah says, there really does seem to be a universality to angels that goes beyond religiosity. Boy, my tongue. Things seem to recognize them even when they don't recognize certain prophets. Well, I mean, there's a lot of cultures have got angelic type beings that are in them that had nothing to do with Christianity.
I would say that there's at least a good chance, in my opinion, that the beings were pre-existing and that they were only named angels and archangels by humankind, and they're probably not so specific to any one religion or thing, so they are more universal. I'd agree with that, and I think that we have to remember that this is just a name people has given them as angels. If these beings, and decided that they're that. So, I also feel the same way about the demonic beings. It doesn't mean they're necessarily demonic just because they're attributed that way. I think a lot of them were pre-existing also, and they may be negative, maybe not, but...
So Kim says, when I meditate, I often get a purple color, moves around, sometimes gets a pinkish ring around it. Yep, purple's a good universal color. Scrying color. Mary says, can you tell me about the sacral and solar plexus chakras? Well, the solar plexus chakra is the New Age version of the hara, which is actually below the navel, which is for willpower, will to live kind of thing, personal power, energy, the energy that keeps you alive. And the sacral plexus is the where the sex organs are in men and women both. And so that's creativity and reproduction, that kind of thing. And, there's a whole series of things that if it's positive or negative or not balanced or imbalanced, kind of stuff.
Sacral one is associated with the water element. And of course, the hara would be fire element.
Yeah, and the people associate the solar plexus with fire as well, which is why they call it solar. There is an actual chakra there, but it's actually a minor chakra. It's not one of the major 7 chakras, and I don't know why the New Age system kind of moved it. But then that's become everybody's reference is the pictures that they put out, the rainbow things, so.
Yeah, but I like to look a lot of old texts.
Yeah, to get sort of an idea. So Chill Baby says, I've only lived in apartments in town, and living so close to people becomes exhausting for me. I've gotten better at grounding, energy awareness, and protection, but even this gets tiring. I know I can imagine. In apartments, for people like us that are sensitive, I recommend putting mirrors on the ceiling and the floor facing away from where you are, as well as on the outside, windows and stuff like that, or the door, just to help reflect some of their thought forms, because people are thinking all the time and they're constantly making them, and they're wandering around, and the more sensitive you are, the more likely you are to be able to see them or sense them or respond to them and so forth. And personal space is really, really important. And using water for grounding, running water is a really good grounding mechanism, especially if you're stuck indoors in an apartment kind of thing. So every time you take a shower or a bath or wash your hands, you can let that excess energy from other people flow out of you and through the pipes and in, just down into the ground. Do what you can, but it is tiring. And sometimes when you're going through a sensitive state, you need to leave and head out into the woods.
Sometimes it's just so annoying because, like, I want to put all this energy towards something positive. I don't want to have to put all this energy towards just defending myself,
Yeah.
It's like, what a nuisance.
Lod says, thank you for your answer. I really hope it was a fire sprite. It feels like a gift to actually see one. I live in the UK. It happened just outside my house. Yeah, I think that's cool. And Mixed Diva said, thanks, Jonathan. Joey D says, thank you again, Siofra and Ian. Got a boogie. Blessed be all. Bye, Joey. Chill Baby says, at Kim, that sounds so wonderful. Would it be so nice? Universe, this is the direction, okay? Use this archetype, okay? Laugh out loud. This lady, Kim. Thanks, Kim, for being a signpost in this expedition. Mary says, thank you. Luna says, Ian, I made sure I colored my chakra diagram according to Woodruff.
Well, excellent. It's the most accurate stuff that I've found, in my opinion, is his stuff and his translations.
Jonathan says, public safety announcement, even if demons aren't necessarily bad, don't play with that stuff. They are enough other intelligences for you to choose from to contact. I'm looking at you, Violet.
Yeah, that's true. They're nothing to fool around with. Sometimes they can not be bad, and they can simply have enough power. Barden mentioned some of them that are powerful enough that you just generally don't evoke them unless you're really far advanced, because their energy would paralyze you or cause you a disharmony and things like that.
Kind of like that two-headed
dragon.
You
don't want to, some of them you just don't want to mess with unless you know exactly what you're doing.
Or you're very lucky.
Yeah. So yes, urge caution on all that stuff.
Mary says, does this feel like especially chaotic times, or has it always been a little chaotic? No, I think that this is not any more chaotic than any other time. Think about, the Inquisition and the burning times, or about slavery, or about any number of other social issues that are out there and people have been struggling with for a long time. It's just there's human people, I should say, not humans. People have got their problems, and they apparently want to project them on everyone else and fight them out that way instead of working on their own stuff. So, Violet says, ha ha, Jonathan, light only. I'm too old for nonsense and chaos. I'm very pooped already. All right, guys, looks like we're coming up on our hour and a half. Good questions. I really appreciate some of these. And yes, I put out that video about what we did for Ukraine, so anybody else wants to follow suit, feel free. And just send as much energy as you can to them to keep up the fight, so that they can keep their homes and so forth and all that jazz. So I definitely put some energy into that. Violet says, I did feel attacked by I don't know who, and thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here.
And Chill Baby said, thank you for the tips and understanding. You're welcome. And so I guess we'll say bye for now. And send me your questions you know, you know that you know we're here to try and get information out as best that we know, and you know we are human too, so you have to make your own decisions. So bye everybody. Bye bye.